Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. One of the strangest news stories in recent weeks was that of a guy called Ahmed Anwari. He was a trainee police officer, and earlier in the year, whenever COVID was really causing such havoc, he wanted to get some time off work. And so he took an antigen COVID test, hoping that he would test positive. But he didn't. And he was very disappointed to find that it was negative, but he still wanted to get some time off work. So what he did, he got a red pen and he drew two red lines across the COVID test strip to make it look like it was a positive test. And then he did a Zoom call with his supervisors. He held up and showed them the positive test and said, I'm going to have to take time off work. I'm going to have to self-isolate. And that time, I think it was 10 days that he would self-isolate for. And he thought he'd got himself a nice holiday. Well, his supervisors looked at it on the computer screen and they just thought it didn't look right. So they said, look, we're going to ask you to take another test. He said, okay, I'll turn off the Zoom and I'll go and take the test. And they said, no. They said, we want you to do the test in front of us. They said, get another test out, do the test on screen, and then leave the thing there and we can watch it and we'll see if it comes up with the same result again, because something doesn't look right with that other one. And at that point, he realized the game was up and he admitted what he had done, that he had faked a positive test. Well, he admitted his deception and he resigned the next day. And the reason why this came up in the news recently was because nevertheless, the police still organized a disciplinary committee to examine what had happened. And they came to the conclusion that he had cheated, that he lied, and that if he hadn't resigned, he would have been fired anyway. Either way, there was no way he's ever going to achieve his ambition to become a police officer, which I think we should all be glad about, because you don't really want somebody like that trying to enforce the law. Somebody who's going to lie and cheat and not even do it well, did it badly in trying to fake a COVID test. It's a classic example of do as I say, not as I do. I mean, it'd be wrong for any employee or trainee to do what that guy did, but this guy was training to be a police officer. I mean, his job is going to be to enforce the rules and the law of the land. And there he is lying and cheating himself. You know, dishonesty seems to be becoming more acceptable in our society. And it goes right the way up to the very top of society. It goes to politicians. It used to be when a politician was caught lying that was the end of their career. A resignation would follow. And now on both sides of the Atlantic, we've seen politicians who lie, not just once or twice, but lie again and again and again, and still remain in office. And people sort of shrug their shoulders and say, that's just who they are. But look at the other great things that they're doing. And so dishonesty has become more acceptable in our society. But however, hypocrisy is not becoming more acceptable. And so while people sometimes have a high tolerance level, far too high a tolerance level for dishonesty, the one thing we still can't stand is hypocrisy. When people expect others to obey the rules, but they aren't prepared to pay the rules themselves. And that still is a resigning matter. And that still is something that brings down high and mighty politicians who think the rules are only for the little people and don't apply to them. But I would say this, hypocrisy does stink, and we should have a low tolerance for hypocrisy. But we should not be becoming more tolerant of dishonesty, because dishonesty destroys trust. And trust, not just for Christians, but in society in general, trust is what holds us together. If we don't trust one another in our society to be honest, to do the right thing, then society begins to fall apart and everything needs to be enforced by police and authorities. And when they're not able to watch everything that everyone's doing, all kinds of evil takes place. And so I do believe this, that even if society in general is quite wrongly becoming more tolerant of dishonesty. We as Christians have an even higher responsibility to act honestly and to be honest. And I pray that God will help us today to live for him and to model an honesty that will be a witness to those around us, whether they know Jesus or not. May God help us to do that today. Join us next time for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.